fill out these forms, we might actually be more careful in doing it than other folks are, because we will ask them, when they get to the question about their Social Security number, again, if there's any hesitation, we usually will not register people. We'll tell them, you know, that by law, they are legally liable for every piece of information that's submitted on there. And they recognize that, you know, that is their responsibility, but we also feel like as people that are doing the voter registration, it's our responsibility too, because we don't want for people to get in trouble, and we don't want, just because somebody may be shy about what their status is, to feel like they're making us happy by filling it out. So we're doing everything we can to ensure that the people that we're registering are legal. But as in any other community, you know, all you can do is trust that somebody's giving you the correct and legal information.
They can buy a Social Security number. They're not ashamed and not embarrassed to present that illegal Social Security number to get a job. So in voting, we should read down the bottom where they're convicted of a felony if they sign that document.
That's right, and that's something that you're correct, and that is something that we emphasize.
We should read that out to them. You know, I wasn't aware of that.
What we do know is that when you look at it nationally, and this is one of the things, you know, when Mark talks about the Republicans using this as this is the boogeyman. El cucuy is who we call him in Spanish. But what we know is that this is really a smokescreen that the Republicans are using, because when you look at percentage-wise, what part of the population we're talking about that is here without proper documentation, we're talking about probably less than 1% of the national population. However, the Republicans would like us to think that we are crawling out of the woodwork at every turn.
Well, see, that's what I don't understand, because when I hear people talking, you know, and some of the farmers and talking about their workers and stuff, and people will lead you to believe that they're getting all this illegal, undocumented labor, but, I mean, not the people that are hiring, obviously, but, you know, they'll be like, you know, this guy's coming across the border to take my job or whatever, but I think that it's more just people being paranoid than it being any real information that they're all illegal workers. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll tell you that when I moved here, you know, it was, I think I had to go back to Texas every now and then to get this infusion of, you know, a validation of who I was, because there was, at a time in North Carolina, there was such a blocking in of who we were as a community, you know, all undocumented, all uneducated. And it was really painful, and I think especially for young people who were born here, who are still sort of being told, you know, you're here illegally. One of the things that we did in this training that I conducted was that I asked people to just register their sphere of influence, and you know, moms know if their kids were born in the U.S. or not and are U.S. citizens.
Right.
And in that small sphere of influence, you know if your, you know, your children's godparents are here, you know, illegally or not. And that was one of the ways that we tried to ensure that people are only registering U.S. citizens, is that if you start in your small circle of intimate, you know, friends and family, then you know, you can trust that when they tell you they're a U.S. citizen or they're over 18, they are. And so that's why we started with that small group, and we're hoping to increase the number, not exponentially maybe in 06, but maybe in 08 for the presidential election we will. So it is relatively a small number as compared to the people that are unhappy with how the war in Iraq is going. I mean, when you compare, you would think that there were more people interested in immigration than there are people in the war, because the Republicans would like for us to think that things are going well in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
They're going according to plan. Now, we don't know what that plan is yet completely. And so and they would like for us to think that things are going really well in the economy. It's the undocumented workers who are ruining our economy, and that's just not true. So I think as Democrats, we have to be careful that we don't get sucked into that dialogue where all we're doing is talking about, you know, undocumented workers, and the bottom line is that most of the people that we know in our precincts and in our districts, that's not their number one issue.
I had two questions for you, and that's one of them. Can you give me a number or a percentage based on Hispanics that are here legally and following the line set down by the immigration, as opposed to those that are coming in over the border illegally? Like, would you say maybe? I know you can't, but some ballpark figure. Could you say the majority, overwhelming 2/3, are here legally?
2/3 are here legally.
Okay, that's all I need. The second thing that I need for you.
No. That's what you asked me. If I could say that 2/3 are here legally.
I was moving on.
Well, let's see. We are 12% of the population nationally. Latino, Hispanics, Latinos. You know, all of those categories. And I think the latest estimate is there between 8 and 12 million people here undocumented is what most of the media espouses. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so that's less than 1% of the national population.
Okay.
And so when you look at it in terms of our community, I don't know. It might work. Somebody did help me with the math, but it might work out to about 2/3.
See, that's something we need to really emphasize.
Yeah, and what I will tell you is that very few Latinos that I know are moving away from North Carolina. People are still coming here. People like myself, who were actually in 1996, the majority of the Latinos that were here were not coming from other countries; they were coming from other states. And so I always thought it was funny that when I got to North Carolina, people will say, "Well, where was I from?" And I would say, "Well, I'm from Texas," and they would say, "Well, are you a U.S. citizen?" And it's like, okay, I was born in Texas. I am a U.S. citizen. They were interested, his office is more interested in the enforcement part of it. And so I think because they know, or he knows, well, I'm not sure he knows how much he really knows about most things.
He's
but
a Republican, but
yeah, I just don't, I think they know that those are our voters. And so they think, well, the longer that we can get them to stand in line, that, you know, that they'll get impatient, or we don't have to worry about them eventually getting on the rolls. So I think that's part of it, but I can't tell you the figure, because they're not only coming, we know that new immigrants are not only coming from Latin America, south of the border, but they're coming from all places in the U.S. And I think what it behooves us to remember is that we are not the only nation who is frustrated by world migration. I mean, you know, we are not, when you look at what's going on in Europe with you know, people coming in, refugees, looking for work in other countries. The same thing happens in Latin America. Mexico's immigration policies are more strict than ours are. You know, for people that are coming from Guatemala, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, all those people that literally walk from Central America through Mexico to get here. I mean, Mexico is more strict with their immigration policies than we are. So it's hard. Yes.
I think one thing when discussing Latino voters with other voters, you know, the paranoia is that people are coming from Mexico to take all of our jobs. But I think the bigger problem is that all of our jobs are leaving us, not that people are coming here to take our jobs. And I think that when you're trying to reframe the immigration question, I mean, you can really go there, because that's a much bigger problem, I think.
Exactly. Probably more North Carolinians are unemployed because their jobs were displaced rather than them being displaced.
Exactly.
And I think that that's the other thing that's going on in the Republican Party, is that they would like for this to be the wedge issue between the African Americans and the Latinos.
Yeah.
They want to say, they're taking your jobs.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're being told they're mad at you for you taking their jobs. And it's like, well, you know, our jobs are all going overseas.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we may be struggling for some of the same jobs, but it's not as if these workers are displacing other workers. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. And Leslie, you can turn off your video camera.